Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're joining us today on Hooked for a 2v2 with the all-region with the AllReasonNoLogic crew. Full house here tonight. On the blue and green team, we have Twig and Tank Tom. On the red and yellow team, we have myself, Praedyth, and Bruticus. Looking for a action-packed game on such a small map. Only a handful of mexes here, so metal control and energy control will be critical. Bruticus and I are starting in one of the corners, trying to take the high ground as an advantage, going for a vehicle's start, going straight into Wolverines to try and control those lower mexes with firepower. Myself, I am transferring all of the power and metal generation to Bruticus to give him the best chance to get the most units out. Twig and Tank Tom have taken control of the middle area of the map. Please note that on this map, the title is 80, so those generators are going to be pumping energy like nothing else in the game. However, if both teams go in the middle, that is a huge amount of fighting to be done before we even get our construction labs going. Tank Tom starting to build their lab now, 1.5 minutes into the game, shelling already coming down on the first mexes. Myself still just building energy in the back, about to move along. Tank Tom building that in range of the high ground. We'll see if that comes into play later, but the shelling, it's in range of the shelling, which means that it may be lost. Tom reclaiming it, good call. Twig moving around trying to get the mexes that he knows he will be able to keep, which is that back corner. Will Twig be able to intercept me before we get to the entry to the gully? We'll see how this one goes. Joining me on this cast, though I haven't let him get a word in so far, is Bruticus and Twig. Twig, you can't see the replay at the moment, so you're just going to have to listen to us. But Bruticus, you're currently looking in. Weigh in on your feelings of the game at the time.
Definitely got that early control of that high ground and that early Wolverine out. It's shifted Tom. He had to abandon building that lab and go into building it elsewhere. He's also lost some early energy, early conversion, and an early mex.
Yep, so definitely in the favour of Praedyth and Bruticus for now. That extra mex that Twig got in range of a Wolverine. So high ground control and vehicles on this are very, very strong. Praedyth is boxing them in at the top of the map, while Twig and Tank Tom have been forced into the back corner. Only a single mex of income, which is, while matching the Praedyth and Bruticus team, ours is a 5.2 compared to a 2, so metal will start becoming an issue for these two. Though they've already lost a lot, the best thing keeping them in the game is that power in the middle. Hopefully we see some shelling on that. Praedyth jumping onto the high ground. If we look at the player view, we can see that they do not have that 5.2. So I'm heading up there to try and put an LLT on the high ground and assault their last safe bastion. Tank Tom and
got that control as well with that 5.2 that they didn't go for. You can see I've got a constructor heading over there now that it's been scouted with that rascal. So we're going to get that 5.2, which is going to double our metal income.
Yep. Then we've got Tank Tom. He's built a series of aggravators which are preventing me from getting a high ground LLT. Now they've been transferred over to Twig in a small game like this, allowing one player to micro and one player to macro, as Bruticus and I have done, is a very strong tactic. Those aggravators going to completely destroy those LLTs with very little damage done to them as they outrange them. Tank Tom trying to get a LLT on the high ground. Myself trying to do the exact same thing because we have a radar. We can see that they have units on the high ground. Sniped with a D-gun at minimum damage. Taken no LLT on the high ground for Twig and Tank Tom. The aggravators have pushed through my LLT. They took a little bit of shelling from the Wolverines. Bruticus doing his absolute best to push those Wolverines and stop the aggravators. If those get on the high ground, it's probably over for Praedyth's commander. In the background on the eco side, Bruticus has managed to take that extra 5.2 metal. Now, as long as we keep building units and keep spending, it is only a matter of time for Twig and Tank Tom.
Just want to jump in here. While you were degunning the high ground, Twig did a really good play. He reclaimed that bot lab, and now you can't degun it, so he got the medal back for that, which is
Yep.
essential for them at this point, considering they're running on 2 mexes.
Yep. Tom smartly putting a radar somewhere where I didn't find it, which means they're going to have vision of my comm and me. And at the time, I thought that they didn't. I see those rocket bots coming up at me, and with Twig's immaculate control, I am unable to attack them. If you notice, he's using a ground fire command every now and then to try and spread that damage out and force me to take a little bit of damage. Lots of dodging going on. And this is going to be a dance of death. I know my comm is dead unless I get a very lucky D-gun. Will Twig let me get that D-gun? Wolverines continuing to harry the low ground while Bruticus has been building up an army. Pounders, Brutes, and Wolverines getting ready to take on Tank Tom. We are going with a divide and conquer, and all the responsibility that I have left in the game is to keep Twig occupied and keep their forces occupied, prevent them from doing anything. They still have a decent amount of metal in the bank, which means they're not out of this fight yet, and they will get more if they manage to kill my comm. Many shots missing, dancing around those missiles, stopping Twig from getting that LLT up. I still have the LLT line to fall back, so a little bit of wiggle room, but I am severely boxed in. Bruticus is trying to push on through, take out Tank Tom, and get to me. Will we be able to crush them before I'm destroyed? That is the big question.
The good thing is we've got Twig's commander up there as well with those aggravators, so it's not 2 commanders fighting my army down on the low ground, it is 1.
Yep.
And Twig's commander, all he's doing is healing those bots and adding an LLT here and there, so it's not contributing too much to this fight.
Taking just a couple of shots, but this comm has been dancing for well and truly over a minute now. Dodging those missiles, trying to keep in this game. The longer I buy brutes, the better the outcome for us. And that metal income is just ticking through for us. Unable to spend it all, but we are slowly but surely building up a bigger and bigger advantage.
Looks like Tom's commander's going for the high ground as well, and at this point I've seen that, and I've started setting up LLTs to try and dish out a little bit of damage before he gets up there.
I believe at this time I've called for the Wolverines to get on the low ground to try and help deal with those, but I'm finally being pushed back behind my LLT wall. One goes down to
on my front as well. I lost some brutes to a D-gun. Tom's trying to D-gun those high ground LLTs, but he's just absolutely missing.
Yep. Thankfully, when it comes to degunning on the high ground, the distance covered up seems to make a difference. So if you're firing on an angle, sometimes the shots go in a slightly different direction to what you'd expect. My comm down to just a sliver of health. It has been dancing for over 2.5 minutes now. The fact that it is alive at this point is crazy. Twig, you were trying your absolute best to take this comm. How were you feeling about my dodging?
He's jumped out.
He's jumped out again. Well, I finally managed to get in range for a little bit of damage. I take 2 of them, but it is about to cost me my life. I have nowhere left to go, and the final missile comes in and takes me down. But Tank Tom is now stuck on the high ground. All mechs no longer available to Twig's team. Bruticus giving me the frontline units so that I can, so that I have something to do now that my last unit had been destroyed. Twig getting some energy down, and both comms moving to the higher ground to try and hold us off for as long as possible. It'll take some pretty amazing degunning to break our hold on the game.
Absolutely, at this point with no mexes to control and no lab, no energy, it's definitely going to be a uphill battle, or in this case downhill for the Twig and Tank Tom.
Yep. Now I should mention this is a best of 3, which means that we will be playing this again afterwards. Same map, same teams, but this time a restriction on the players to not go for the winning team not to be able to use the same tech tree. So the winner will be forced off of their preferred choice for this map. So in our case, if we lose, we'll be forced off of tanks.
If we win, we'll be forced off tanks.
Oh, sorry, if we win, we'll be forced off tanks, yep. Whereas Twig and Tank Tom down to their last comm, very little in the way of hope left for them at the moment. These brutes trying to micro damage onto the comm and more units coming down. We can see this game is essentially going to come to an end. The only metal available to Twig is that comm, and because of that LLT being built and the metal storage being in range, they won't even be able to utilize or keep all that metal. Twig
Solar
putting
will go down pretty shortly as well, so he's running out of options.
Yep, Twig putting down another bot lab at this stage. I would have actually gone for a tank lab, just because the only option I see them getting back into the game with is phenomenal micro with Wolverines or well, essentially artillery, because anything else will be outranged, and the metal and army advantage so far in Bruticus and Praedyth's favor. Bruticus getting a high ground lab, very smart decision to try and pincer Twig in, as we don't have enough forces to brute force a comm too risky with those D guns.
It's a bit harder, slightly harder. That's not a very... It's a gentle slope up that hill, but it's still a disadvantage for tanks pushing.
Yeah, makes it very slow for them to turn around, so they're very easy to be D-gunned. We're just... and Bruticus and I are just getting our tanks in place, starting the shelling, and closing this game out. Twig, low energy, unknown to us at the time, but he wouldn't have been able to get a D-gun on, so just that slow and inevitable takedown. Unfortunately, no energy production, no metal production, and this is going to be the end of the game very shortly. Brute's able to out micro, and Twig accepting defeat and getting ready to control D his comm.
Very good start for us in that one, best of 3.
Yep.
Taking the first victory.
And that will be a 1-0 in Bruticus and Praedyth's favor. We'll jump into the next game. You're joining us for Game 2 of this 2v2 series of Hooked, TankTom, and Twig in green and blue versus Bruticus and myself, Praedyth, in red and yellow. Game 1 was a victory for Bruticus and Praedyth. Tanks seem to be dominant in this matchup. Bruticus and I have chosen to shake things up and try for a middle of the map push. And with that radar, we are well and truly aware that TankTom and Twig are here with us. Unfortunately, bad placement by myself with that LLT, and allowing TankTom to get in front of his and get the first few shots off of mine, continuing to build. This will be, if I continue to fight this will be a loss for my comm. That start is probably going to spell trouble for us, but with 2 comms we nearly got the LLT up, but a good D-gun by TankTom to take it out, having to build a further back LLT, ceding ground, which is not what you want to do in a comm matchup. Low health on Praedyth, medium on Tom, and still decent on Bruticus. Unfortunately, Twig gets in front of that LLT, blocking the D-gun.
Just in time too, that was so close.
So close. And then we've got a fight for control of the middle of the map. No units from either player, but that tidal generator, so much energy for Twig and TankTom. They will be able to get those D-guns off far better than Bruticus and I. Extra LLTs going up, but again, bad positioning by myself. This combat is not what I'm used to. Players such as Twig and TankTom, who have been in most of our videos beforehand, very much so ahead. A desperate attempt by myself to take out their comms. I tried to self-destruct my commander, but didn't get close enough. Both comms on low health, but this leaves Bruticus on his own against 2 comms, double the build power for Twig and TankTom's team, and at this point in the game, that is going to be critical. Still no lab coming out for TankTom and Twig. Bruticus with the right idea, hiding with those LLTs, and we've got a bot lab coming up, a series of aggravators to try and outrange those LLTs and push on in. TankTom getting a lab up. Similar strategy coming out of both players, most likely trying to push those LLTs with aggravators. Aggravators outranging them, so great for dealing with this close combat. Low eco, fast-paced game. Love to see it, but that energy from Twig and TankTom, it is keeping them so much higher than Praedyth and Bruticus, essentially only on two solars for energy income. first couple of aggravators out from Bruticus. Twig healing that damage, keeping preventing any sort of push. Bruticus smartly going for that energy. If we can take out that energy, it'll give us a big window back into the game. Aggravators out from TankTom, looking to start pinstering us down from the top. This is going to come down to who has the best aggravator control and who can keep their LLTs alive.
At this point, I was trying to spread out the damage since that com's healing that LLT, so I started focusing on several LLTs at once. That way I could at least pick off one.
Yep.
And slowly wear them down. But once those aggravators were out, I kind of knew the writing was on the wall.
Yep. Definitely something which, in hindsight, we could have improved on. Giving me one or two of those aggravators to micro intensely may have made a slight difference, but with the energy income, TankTom able to outproduce, and Twig going in, looking to do exactly the same thing that I did before and take out Bruticus with his comm. Twig was successful. Game 2 goes to TankTom and Twig. Join us for Game 3, where we'll find out who wins this best of 3. Catch you in a bit.
See you.
Welcome back to Game 3. You're joining us on Hooked again with TankTom and Twig versus Bruticus and Praedyth. With our success in Game 1, Bruticus and I are planning on going for that high ground and back eco. TankTom and Twig still starting in the middle, that energy just too tempting. This time, because of the restriction from the first game, we are attempting the same strategy with bots this time instead of vehicles. We'll see if we can achieve something similar using aggravators. Starting with a couple of pawns to push into that low ground and scout TankTom and Twig. But getting that early power up in the middle is going to be a big advantage for the green and blue duo. Passing energy along up to Bruticus, same as before, as well as the energy income, as he is going to be our only person with a lab. Seeing a slight micro mistake by myself, locking myself inside of a solar. Thankfully, the devs have allowed for units to manage to squeeze themselves out. In the past, you would have had to eat the building. Constructor heading on over, about to be passed off to me. Unfortunately, being on the low ground and passing a lot of my eco off to Bruticus, not a lot I can do with that one. TankTom establishing a dominant position in the middle with Twig getting units up, going vehicles, knowing about the massive range advantage and power advantage of the vehicles in this map. Low eco games, those tanks, if you can keep them alive, absolutely powerful. One aggravator starting to get a few shots on TankTom's LLT, and TankTom trying to get himself up there to put a high ground LLT, which is going to be quite difficult to deal with as it will outbuild just versus one aggravator. And then TankTom will be able to keep it very healed. Micro mistake by Bruticus keeping that aggravator in range, a small loss that could have been avoided. First Wolverine on the field. This is going to start shelling the high ground. With its large range, it can essentially reach the entirety of the high ground, making it very, very strong, even with limited vision, provided you're good at guessing where the enemy players are, or you can see them standing on the cliff edge. One of the mechs is going down for Twig and TankTom, leaving them with the only one mech's income, so income advantage to Bruticus and Praedyth. But those tanks are going to be very hard to push through. Bruticus, at the time, how did you feel the bots were going now that you're seeing them being shelled by those Wolverines?
I knew that we were probably getting into a limited time to actually get something done. We do have a lot of rocket bots out there, but it was very frustrating to fight the Wolverines, even with the high ground advantage.
Yep. Then looking at the bottom of the map with that pounder there, Bruticus and I were unable to get a scout across the map. Therefore, the scouting option we have is my comm heading to the high ground, which we know from the previous game is a trap, but I decided to ignore good old Admiral Akbar and go there anyway, assuming that the cost of it will be worth it against preventing them from getting that 5.2 that we don't yet know they don't have. TankTom getting a high ground LLT, a comm able to outdamage an LLT, a little bit of combat going on between TankTom and I, both trying to fight by getting an LLT up, but no progress for either player. Second mech's going down this time for TankTom, and Bruticus Tank Tom and Twig, which will even up the income considerably. Large amount of bots down the bottom, only a Brute and a Pounder in the way, but Pounder's very, very strong. That AoE shot, it is a crowd control, it is an anti-swarm tank, and that is exactly what it does. Huge losses there for us. And with Twig healing up those tanks and the Wolverines pounding down on us, very tough to push out of that choke point. And as the game goes on, the advantage now starts to swing in Tank Tom and Twig's favor, now at 6 metal income to 5.2, and with those efficient trades, it's going to have to be a quick battle for us or a slow defeat.
You can definitely see the desperation in my pushers trying to use those grunts to occupy the Pounder while I try to get a kill on it with the Rocketeers or the Aggravators, but it's just not working.
Yep.
That healing's just too strong.
Yep. Praedyth's Commander getting a D-gun on that upper, on the upper LLT, trying to get LLTs on the high ground to deny Twig and Tank Tom some income. However, a better use of my time would have been to build an LLT similar to where Twig is to try and control that choke. Twig is moving those Wolverines up. They're getting very close to our economy, and our build power. If he moves those forward just a little bit more, he'll actually be in range to take out our bot production. Tank Tom has swung around, pushed through those LLTs, and is getting into our back line. Getting up a radar, he is going to provide the vision for those Wolverines to get shots onto the bot lab, and no defenses down here for our energy. Very, very bad time for. It's about to be a very bad time for Bruticus and Praedyth.
Definitely a miss macro on my part by not putting some LLTs there. Probably spotted Tom's comm coming around there a bit too late. We've focused on trying to deal with Twig's tanks.
Unfortunately, as the game progresses, Bruticus and I are falling further and further behind. Tanks very much so do seem to be dominant on this map. That LLT and Tank Tom's comm pushing on through and will take out all of our energy production and all of our metal production, swinging the game very much so in favor of of Twig and Tank Tom. But Tank Tom's comm is now stuck, and a push could potentially take Twig's comm snipe in this. Could be the difference between a win and a loss. That energy.
Unfortunately, I put an attack command on that LLT that's down there with Tom's commander, and it dragged my aggravators around, so they tried to walk around towards the long way instead of just taking pot shots from the high ground. So big miss micro there by me.
Yep. And sometimes in this game, a small move like that can make a huge difference. Tank Tom not quite dancing as effectively as Praedyth did in game 1, but still dodging a lot of that damage. Wolverines plinking away, getting chip damage here and there, but over time, with no metal income, the damage is huge. But the aggravators getting great shots off on the Wolverines. No micro out of Twig from them at the moment, meaning that 2 of the Wolverines will go down. That is half of the artillery force, but Tank Tom getting a D-gun on the lab. Absolutely no metal reclaim, and with our income at +4 metal, which is just from the comm, that means there will not be a new lab for a long time. So it is win or lose for Bruticus and Praedyth based on the units they have. Tank Tom's comm does go down. Locking yourself into one of these corridors seems to be a very dangerous move. And it is now all down to tanks versus bots with very little in the way of reinforcements on the way. I am my comm too low to push to that LLT high ground, not quite enough to stop the LLT from shooting the aggravators, finding a spot where they can get shots on without being shot, clearing an opening for me. Desperate play here, desperate play here, trying to take my comm into the enemy base and get some detonation damage going. Bit of Alt-D action. Unfortunately, with 1 Pounder there and a couple of Wolverines, my comm with no energy income has very little chance. This is a desperation play. And sometimes when you're in this position, desperation plays are all you've got.
And trying to ward them off with those aggravators on the high ground, doing a decent job, but still the Wolverine's range just absolute control. And now you can see that some tanks have been passed over to TankTom, and he's pushing up that ramp.
Yep, those tanks going to have the speed advantage on the aggravators, and they're pushing on through. A little bit of a micro mistake by TankTom which could have allowed for some damage. When you attack, you want to attack in a perpendicular line as compared to running at them in a line. Allows you to get all of your firepower up and rolling. One pounder up there against 3 aggravators and 1 pawn is essentially a foregone conclusion. Trying to get changing away from the kamikaze strategy, Praedyth has jumped into the water pool created by TankTom's explosion, getting metal and energy, trying to get a lab up, see what we can do with that, see if there's any chance of breaking through and sniping Twig's comm.
Definitely a big believer in renewable resources and reclaiming TankTom's comm and then setting up tidal generation.
Yep.
Go green energy.
Gotta do what we can to save the planet. Ignore all of the very diesel heavy tanks and bots. Those are environmentally friendly, we swear. Going
That's
for
pixie dust coming out. That's pixie dust.
yeah. And the metal is we actually do recycle a lot of metal in this game. In fact, it's one of the best ways to win. Bruticus building that low ground energy means that we've finally seen that TankTom has actually sneakily built our 5.2 in the back. That's a huge amount of metal that's netted them over the course of the game. Those tanks plinking away at some of the last of Bruticus's forces. A last-ditch attempt, getting out as many pawns as possible to try and rush Twig's comm. Can Bruticus and I bring us back from the brink? With so many Wolverines, it's actually very possible to dodge a lot of that damage, as the Arc of Fire allows for pawns to be quite good against them. However, if we check the player view of myself, we are completely unaware of what those units are up there, and if we had vision, we would know that pushing through those pounders going to be very difficult. Best to try and outrun them. Bruticus hiding in one of the only places that his comm can without being shelled, trying to dodge the rain of fire. Bruticus, you're heading for D-guns down the cliff, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's one of the only things I can really do now.
And if you saw just there, that's what we were talking about with the angle of a D-gun. Going down that slope, it traveled almost no distance because it was traversing the slope as compared to the horizontal distance. So they can definitely, D-guns can definitely act unexpectedly when you're shooting at high or low grounds. A couple of rascals heading on through. Now we know that Bruticus and I know that our lab has been spotted. Going in for the attack before we would hope to, but Twig getting his pounders and his brutes in the way. This is going to be tough to push through, and there is no space to maneuver around. Micro mistake there by me. Should have tried to rush them, but I don't think it would have mattered. And this is going to be essentially the end of our pawn rush. There is not a lot that we can do. Only thing left for me to try is some D-guns on those pounders. High damage, but mostly in an AoE. A D-gun may very well be able to take most of them out, which I do. If only I'd been able to do that before losing the pawns. So now we have a comm, 6 pawns, and a dream, and a D-gun heading into Twig's base. Managed to take out the defenders. Can I swing around and take out Twig's comm? Unfortunately, bad decision trying to march into those LLTs. Didn't know they were there. Tried to take them after finding out. Just a comm against a single brute. D-gun miss. And that brute is going to claim the comm. Bruticus is the only one left. Very low HP. Trying to sneak away. Again, going to be very hard to snipe a comm because D-guns do not work against comms. And I'm going to say it, but I would say that this is effectively GG for Praedyth and Bruticus. While the cleanup is happening, how do you think this set of 3 games went?
Ooh, I had good fun. I had good fun playing them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think there's definitely a vehicle advantage here.
Hmm.
Um, I did expect some air in this last game from Twig because he's very well known for his air transitions. So you can see that I've had an AA bot at one point, and then I built an anti-air up at the back. It never came, unfortunately. But yeah, vehicle is definitely a controlling factor on this map. Those Wolverines or Shell Shockers can reach a lot of that high ground and lock you down and make it very painful to live there.
Mm. Hooked definitely is one of our favorite maps for fun things like this. The confines of it and the limited attack paths make for great small scale games, very fast paced. And we're just about to see Bruticus trying to ambush the tanks with D guns. Unfortunately, I said he should build some sort of vision, and that caused him to have all the energy consumed. No D guns for Bruticus, and that is going to be the brutes taking him out again. And that is the final GG on this one. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope that you join us on the next one. Please like and subscribe, and if you want to play a game with us, or if you want to join us on one of our streaming nights, feel free to join our Discord in the description below. If you've got any interesting replays you'd like us to cast, send them our way, and we'll take a look. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Have a good day or evening, whatever the hell it is.